Seches Bavakama Dafkav Chesed Madalif in the bottom of the page. Says the Mishnah, Nish Barakade B'Shus Arabim, Nishuz Nishmas of Imer Menachem Ben Akiva. Says the Mishnah, Nish Barakade B'Shus Arabim, V'Uchlak Echad B'Mayim. One other person, after one person came and his kad, his jug broke, everything, water spilled over the water and over the floor, the water, everything there is broken. And what happens then? He slipped in the water, or what happened? He hurt himself with the broken pieces. Chayev. Is Chayev, who's Chayev? The jug owner. And it's not so simple at all. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Miskaven Chayev, Ben Miskaven Potur. Says Rabbi Yehuda, Miskaven Chayev. Miskaven doesn't mean, by the way, like I said yesterday, mamish on purpose. Nobody is doing b'mezid. Miskaven means that the person who actually broke the jug was not completely honest. He didn't even mean to hurt anybody, but the one who broke the jug, it happened by mistake, but the mistake could have been avoided. That's not today's issue. Like I said yesterday, it's not the issue now. That will be the issue maybe at the end of this year if we'll get there. But if it's not miskaven, if it was done by complete honest, then it's potu. Rabbi Yehuda is not the issue now. We have enough on our plate, in our jug, from the first opinion. Now, let's just imagine a person slipping in the street, on the water, hurting himself. That could be a very nice slapstick comedy, but it's not, it's real life. And then what are the things that are hurt, usually? There are two things. Water, if you're wearing your fancy, nice Bekic and Streimel and everything on Shabbos, and then what? And then slipped on the water, then your beautiful Streimel is now all wet, all the fur over there, it's ruined, I don't know, thousands of dollars. The Bekisha, everything, it's wet in a way, not just wet, it's muddy, disgusting, it's going to cost a lot of money to fix it. That's one thing. And the other thing, the person himself was also hurt. So we assume that there are two nezikim here. And listen to this, and this may be the starting point here. The assumption here that a person hurt himself by hitting the ground. The person just slipping on water, let's say the guy with the Streimel is a very professional in, in the water ski. It's very nice. There's no problem to walk on the water, especially if you belong to the religion of the 25th of January, right? With a ho. Yeah, very good. But if you belong to the Jewish religion, then there is a problem that the water, you don't just slide on them, you eventually hit the ground, boom. So the ground is what hit the person. The clothes, the garments, how were they hit? They were not hit. They got dirty by the water. So there are two nizikin here. The water hurt, so to speak, the clothes, and the body was hurt by the floor, okay? By the ground. That should be a starting point. Now we have to go on from there to understand the Machlokes between Rav and Shmuel. Amar Yehuda, Amar Rav. Lo yishanu, that is only true that there's any kind of chiyuv, ela shetin fukelav b'mayim. The only chiyuv is on what? On the fact that the water got dirty with the clothes got dirty through the water. Aval hu atzmoi potu. But the person who hurt himself, who broke his arm because he hit the ground, potu, spotu, karka oilam ezikosoi. Because it's really not the fault of the water owner, so to speak. It's karka oilam. This is something done by the ground, not by the water. This needs a lot of explanation. Let me explain something over here, and that is the really Rav Shmuel. As I said yesterday, but we'll elaborate. What? Ownerless ground. Ownerless ground, right. They're Yah's fault. Machlokes, Rav, seems like what Rav says seems to be strange, right? Everything will be explained in Mitzvah Hashem. Just listen for a few minutes, and then we'll see. Says Rav, and I'm not reading weiter, I'm explaining now by heart. Says Rav, I can read Rashi if you want. Rashi is Ikoso. It's the second Rashi, the second line in Rashi. The mammon, which is the water, is only groma. Says the Rashba, the mammon, my water didn't even push you to the ground. The water and you together created this imbalance, and you fell into the ground. It's my water who caused you a groma, and you fell into the ground. Let's assume now it's the ground outside the puddle, let's say, to make it clearer, although it's not so clear. And then you're hit by the ground. You're going to say, you left the water over there. Wait a second. Says the Gemara, Rav l'taimi, continues Rashi. Rav follows his own reasoning. The Omer l'kamani says later, the reason why Bo is Chaim, says Rav, is as follows. First of all, says Rav, Bor is only chayav if, as bor, with all the special halachas of bor, only if it's hefker. The classical case of bor in the Torah is what? A person went in the middle of the street, a public place, dangerous place. He dug a hole in the street, okay? And then what happened? Once he dug the hole, people fell inside. If people fell inside and hurt themselves, it's chayiv, right? And also if animals did, it's chayiv, even if they died. If kalim, if vessels fell inside, it's potu. That is only if it's hefker. Or the same thing would be if I leave hefker in the street. If I leave a puddle of water, like the sponge of water, and the water is hefker, I'm not going to collect the water anymore. I'm not collecting dirty water. Then it's hefker. Then the laws of bo apply. You know what? Bo, we say about bo, what do we say about bo? Shor velo odom, chamor velo kalim. Yeah, in other words, if we say that kalim are also clothes, also garments. If this puddle would be regular ownerless puddle, which would be bo, then I'm not chayiv anything on the garment. And you know what? I'm also not chayiv on the fact that my bo caused you to fall onto the ground. Why? Rav believes that when I dig a hole in the ground, if I dig a hole in the ground, you know why you chayiv if you fall inside and you hurt yourself? Because of the hevel, the bad air. Inside the ground, you have like hot air. And if the bore is very wide and there's good air, Rav says you're not chayiv. Wow. And there are other crazy cases there over there in Daf Nun. But because the air is bad, even if we see that you fractured your skull, fractured Khalila, your arm, we still allege it to the bad air because we say, had it been better air, you'd be in better conditions to heal quicker. He always alleges it to the bad air. Masha'en can over here, this is open air, this is nice in the middle of the street. The fact that my bore caused you to fall to the ground outside the bore, that alone is not a chiyuv. Hey, so wait a second. So therefore, and this is the point where the Rosh explained in the article, therefore says the Rosh, wait a second, wait a minute. It says, the Rosh, explaining Rav. If this water, if this puddle is hefker, then we have an issue here. If bo equals hefker, true? If the water is hefker and bo, according to Rav, you'd be chayiv 0, zilch, efes, null, nothing. Why? On the clothes, he's potter, because why? Because really the clothes is potter, shor velo odom, chamor velo kalim. If something happened in my boat to your clothes, and that happened inside the puddle, inside the boat, the water is dirty, I'm potter. Elamai, you're saying I'm chayiv on the person who fractured his arm? I'm potter. Because really, my bow never caused you anything to do with bad air. It's like I told you yesterday, if I have something bumping, something three-dimensional object in the street, and somebody fell from it on the ground, I'm potter. If he climbed on it, like a kid, you know, they climb on a high thing, and then they fall, that's not my fault, because why? It didn't happen inside my bow. There's no chavoto in the bow and no hevel. So wait a second, if this puddle belongs to nobody, hefker, that would be bo, but in that case, the bo would be chayiv nobody. Not chayiv on the kalim because of gzeras hakosuf, it's just gzeras hakosuf baruch, and also on the person, it's ki'ilu my bo pushed you forwards. Therefore, says Rav, what's the story? Says Rav that really this bo is owned by someone. This puddle of water is owned by a person. And this is what, by the way, Rashi says over here, lo hifkas memo. You can see Rashi in Kaf Amud Aleph if you want. Rav must, by default, explain this puddle belongs to the person. And you know what it's called? It's called Shor. I'm soon going to explain why. We said yesterday also. It's a default Av Nezikin called Shor. So now what happens? On the Kalim, I'm chayiv. It's as if I bumped into someone's bull sitting in the street and the bull gored me. And then what? Then, on the clothes, I'm chayiv. If a shor hurt my clothes, I'm chayiv. But if the shor basically pushed me in a gramadika way, it didn't really push me. The shor and I together caused it, like the water slipping and me and balancing in a grama way. I'm adding the rashba here. To the ground, I potter on that. Let's summarize. According to Rav, we must, by default, we're constricted, we are forced to say that this puddle belongs to the person. And therefore, it's considered to be shor. Therefore, in the Kalim, I'm chayiv. A shor is chayiv on everything. A shor, Keren. It's like a shor muad, says the Rashba. I'm chayiv on keren of my shor, whether it hit a person, kalim, a telephone, socks, or Clinton. I don't know where's what, machpatli. Anything that happened, I'm chayiv, right? That is the shor. The person, his puddle, because my shor didn't directly hit you, you were slipping in a way that caused you to fall later on to the ground. And the grama of an animal, that's already I'm not chayiv. By the way, the Rashba explains which kind of shor do we compare it to? You can't compare it to shen, there's no enjoyment over here. You can't compare it to regel, because also this is in Rosh Hashanah, right? And shen v'regel are potter in Rosh Hashanah. He says must be keren. You know what kind of keren? Keren muad. It's a keren muad. A keren muad is chayav everything all the time in all places. Nezek sholem. Says the Rashba, keren muad. Keren muad has vicious kavana. Keren muad is a bad show. He is blacklisted by the police, right? How do you compare an innocent puddle to a shor muad that has vicious kavana? Answers the Rashba beautifully. He says, listen to this. He says there is bad intention over here. You know who had bad intention? The owner of the water. Because he wasn't careful enough and he was poshea, he should have been more careful, and he actually left the puddle over here and he's not being careful. That's the parallel of the shor being vicious and angry. And therefore he wants to say this puddle is like shor muad. And therefore it's chayav b'reshus harabim and chayav on everything, and the owner's negligence is compared to the shor's bad behavior yetzer hara. So that's what Rav holds. So according to Rav, this puddle is owned by someone. It has a halacha of shor, and you chayav on the clothes, you chayav on the shtraimel bekisha, or the jeans or the t-shirt, whatever he wears, and you are potter on the person slipping outside this puddle as a result of a strange thing like slipping. It's like the man and the water together caused it in a grammatic way, and that is potter. That's Rav. I prefer no questions because we're going to go back to there anyways, okay? It's one of these Gemaras. Once we let it sink a little bit, continue to Shmuel. We'll see now the other opinion that argues. Back to Rav, you will get clear, and if not, you'll have time for questions. Now he's continuing to, Rav Yehuda says, I said this in front of Shmuel. Omerli, Michdi, says Shmuel, ma pitom. What? Says Shmuel, what's Rav talking about? Avnoi v'sakino masoi. Avnoi is the stone. A sakin, a knife, masoi, any bundle, any package that a person left in the middle of the street above ground, mi boy lamadnu, right? They're all learned from bow. And Rav agrees to that. Rav agrees to that too. The kulan, all of them, ani koyer behen, I read into them, I learn regarding them, shor veloy odom, chamor velo kelim. Yeah, I read into all of them the law, the rule of only a bull. It says in the Torah, shor v'chamor, shor or chamor. A bull, as opposed to a person who died. Chamor, a donkey v'lo kelim, a person who died, or kelim that broke, I potter in the bar. You know, when a person I'm not chayiv on, if he died, then the bar owner is not chayiv. Says Shmuel, what's your problem? It's a well-known thing that when it comes to nezikin, when it comes to a person who's damaged in the bow, in a classical bow of either he fell into the bar or he bumped into the above ground bar, the bundle left there illegally in the street, a person that hurt himself, boom, damaged, he's bit, hit his head against your bundle, then you're chayiv. And Kalim, the brok Turin, says Shmuel, this is a regular case of, in other words, Shmuel says something very simple. Don't you agree with me, Rav? This is a regular case of bow. Bow should be that the puddle of water is bow. Don't start telling me stories about the ground hitting. This is your bore. Why is this your bore? Because just like you left behind in the street, anything dangerous, avno sakino masoi, the name of the water is the same. Water is bow, and therefore it's just the opposite from you. The bow, you chayiv on the bore hitting the ground, and your potter, the person who hit himself in the ground and fractured the skull, something, you chayiv on that, and in the clothes your potter. Wait a second, why doesn't Shmuel say that this is groma? Why doesn't Shmuel say that it's not my fault because it's my water and it hit the ground is not mine? Of course you can say that according to Shmuel. Shmuel believes that a bow is chayiv not because of the bad air, he's chayiv because of chavoto, boom. Every bow you hit the ground. when you dig a bow, and basically what do you do when you dig a pit? You make a drop. You make a drop in the ground of 10 tfachim. Of course, the person hits the ground, it doesn't hit your knife you put there. And still you chayiv because of the big boom, because of the fall, because of gravity. Same thing over here, exactly the same. They argue on two things. They argue about the ownership of the bow, and they also argue about the essence of the boar. If the boar caused somebody to be hit outside the actual boar, am I chayiv or not? Says Shmuel, yes. This is a boar, boom, you hit the ground, that's your chayiv. Says Rav, no. This is like a Shor and him together working and eventually hit the ground, that's not considered my boar. Now, how would Rav answer to Shmuel? You already know the answer, because I told you. The Rav, no Rav, what do you say? It's all true, says Rav. I agree with every word you say, but, Hanimili, that is true, echadav kerinu. When when he actually abandoned it, was mafkiri, then we say, I agree with every word you say about bow, providing its bow, which is hefker. Where he did not actually mafkir it, that's considered to be his money. And if it's money, by the way, if you think Rav is saying something funny, he's mekel. If it's still your money, he's not mekel, he's more machmir. If you're mafkir it, at least you have the decency. You disturb everybody else. I'm saying balabatish, my own svara. You disturb everybody else, but at least you don't claim you want it back. Then we say the ptur yabo shavel adam chamav v'lo kelim. You potter on the kelim, but if you want to retrieve it, you disturb everybody else, and then with bump into it, no, it's mine. It's yours. Then it's not considered as bow that patters you. It's considered as your show, and it's more chomer, and you chayv on your kelim. So therefore, according to Shmuel, this is, one second, according to Shmuel, this case is bow. It's hefker. Oh, by the way, according to Shmuel, we don't care whether it's hefker or not hefker. Shmuel says, I don't care whether he owns it or doesn't own it, or maybe he's a shareholder. I don't care what. Or maybe belongs to his mother-in-law's grandmother. Lach patli. At the end of the day, this is your nezek, whether you're mafkir or not mafkir. It's yours, it's bow. Therefore, if somebody slips there, boom, you chayev on the chavoto. Shmuel believes that boom, the chavoto, the hit is what matters, and you chayev on that. And even though it gets your bar bekitzer, and you potter on the kelim on the bekishe and the shtraimel, you potter. Why? Rav says no. This bow is owned by a person. It's called Shor, and by Shor you chayev on the kelim. If a Shor gored you and tore your suit, of course chayev. What about the person hitting? He hit something, that's irrelevant. The fact that he hit the ground, that's already considered as a grama, and you potter on that. Okay. Even it's like the Shor who pushed you. It's like an indirect push. It's more like you sliding and sliding the chule. Question? Yes, sir. Yes, Peanut Gallery, what would you like to tell us? Okay, I'm sorry, the Zoom stopped. Let's restart from Mesiv Rav Oshia, if you don't mind. Let's recap from Mesiv Rav Oshia, a few lines above. Rav Oshia asks a question that's difficult in both Rav Shmuel. A bull and not a person, and a chamor, a donkey, and not the kelim. Mikan omu. From here we say, let's say you have a pit in the middle of the street, a hole, and an ox and his kelim, such as the plow. Boom! Everything fell. The ox died. And the kelim broke, chamo, or chamo v'kelev v'niskaru, the chamo with his saddle and his blanket. They fell into the pit, the chamo died, and the kelim tore, chayev ala behema. On the behema you're chayev. It says in the Torah, show chamo. And potur ala kelim, and on the kelim you're potur. On the kelim, any kli, soft, hard, broke, tore, it's all the same. Okay, so you potur on them, zel sakosuv. By the way, how do we know it from the Torah? The fact the Torah says, show chamo. The Torah should have said, v'nofal anything, v'nofal mashehu. Because we specify, show chamo, sounds like animals are the only ones around as opposed to kelim or as opposed to a dead person. You know why you're chayev if something or somebody fell into your pit? You know why? It's so bad. It's as bad as it's a terrible thing that you have a pit in the street. You chayev because it's like similar to the avnoi, sakina masah, the stone, the knife, or the bundle left in the street above ground. Frag the Gemara, Hashem Yishmol, like Baruch's question, Baruch Shekivanto, Adraba, on the contrary, Mad Doim Halazemi Baitle, should say the other way, should say, who's an Av and who's a Tolda? Who's an Av and who's a Tolda here? The bow, the real bow is an Av. The Tolda is the Avna Sakina Masoi, right? you chayiv because you turn on the light on Shabbos because it's similar to the flame, not the other way. And says the Gemara, true. Ella, you should really change the version of the Brisa. It's just a Brisa, not a Mishnah. We can change the version. We didn't have the right version, the Girsa. You know what is similar, what is the derivative, what is the new idea that we derive from there? So we got that over. We're over and done with that. We're okay with that. Lefikach, here comes the Seifa, short and bitter Seifa. Lefikach, therefore, because of what we said, if a person walks down the street gingerly, sauntering in, and he's walking with his tzlochit is not a small plate. Modern Hebrew is wrong. Tzlochit is a small bottle in Old Hebrew of the Mishnah. He walks around with a small bottle of perfume or things like that, and he walked and boom, he bumped into someone else's stone. He got stoned. Yeah, he bumped into someone's stone, and the tzloch is broke. Then the owner of the stone is chayev. Everybody happy? Yeah? Yeah? If you left your stone in the middle of the street in Chavtziba, you left a big stone, yeah? Because you want to build something with it, you left a big stone there. I walked with a nice bottle of perfume from my wife's thing, and I bumped into your stone owned by you. Then what do we say? It broke, so you are chayev on my thing that broke. Make sense? No, why not? This is bow. Let's assume it's a bow. And I bumped into it and I broke. What? And the winner is Peretz. He's the one. 10 points. A trip to Hawaii. To Scotland. Yeah, it's Kalim. Kalim Potter and a boar. Even in the middle of the street, we said it's a bow. We said that kalim are potter. Any shape or form of kalim can be perfume or can be a plastic plate. Anything of kalim is potter. And here the Brisa says chayev. The end. The Brisa stam does make sense. But first of all, we are questioning Rav Shmuel. Quick. Frag the Gemara. Now, Reisha Kashia LeRav. The Reisha, the beginning of the Brisa is difficult with Rav. The Seifa Kashia LeShmuel. Why? The beginning is difficult with Rav. Why? Because the beginning, we assume that the beginning of the Brisa is divided into two. The beginning of the Brisa talks about a real ball, a real life, boom, kind of thing. 10 him down there, and somebody fell in there. The assumption is that it's owned by a person because it says boro, his bow. Yeah, a person has a bow. Okay. Others says the boro, but we assume it's owned by the person, and yet we say it has the characteristics of a bow. That's not good with Rav. Rav said if I own the bow, then everything is chayiv. Also the kalim. True. So the Reisha is not good with Rav. The Seifa Kashia LeShmuel. The Seifa is difficult with Shmuel. Why? Because it's true what parents were saying. The Seifa, if I bumped into a stone, yeah, then why with my nice little glass bottle, then the owner of the stone is chayev, who said the ball is potu. Now Rav with the Seifa is good. How can Rav answer the Seifa? You tell me. According to Rav, that Seifa, I bumped into someone's ball, 3-dimensional ball, and I broke the nice perfume bottle, and he's chayev. Why is that? According to Rav, if he owns it, if he still owns it, it's not ball, it's Shor. It's a Shor that bumped into me. Then, of course, good. The Seifa is good with Rav, and the Seifa is not good with Shmuel. And the Reisha is good with Shmuel, not with Rav. But in any event, both Rav and Shmuel Amoraim are not so good with the Brisa. The Brisa is against both. It's a third enemy. Answers the Gemara what we said before. Says the Gemara, wait a minute. Leave Rav Shmuel alone for a minute. The Brisa itself is difficult. Before you attack Rav Shmuel, look at the Brisa itself. It's gufa. Within itself, it has its own internal contradiction. Reisha, potu. In the Reisha, we say potu. In the Reisha, we say that potu on kalim. The Seifa chayiv on the kalim, as Peretz very nicely said. Reisha says the ball is potu on kalim. The Seifa chayiv on kalim. Since the Brisa anyhow needs some cosmetic surgery over here, let Rav Shmuel, each one can deal with it very nicely. Each one will explain the entire brisa according to his understanding. Let's see. Very nice. Rav explains according to his own reasoning. You know when it's true what we just said in the Reisha, that you're potter on the Kalim and you're potter on a person that's dead, let's say, all these special characteristics of bow, you know, and that is when the bow is hefker, then bow is just a bow, hefker is bow. In case where the person still maintains ownership over the bow, such which would be very common by stone, it's an expensive stone, and still there are many more Shabbos with car driving, he anticipates, whatever, he wants a stone, yeah, and then if it's a stone owned by me, that's not a bow. I'm chayv on the kelim, like show, like regular nezik. Lefikach says the Bryce and the Seifa. If you bumped into the Evan, into the stone with somebody else bumped into my stone, I had a man here, I had some big stone there, and boom, somebody else bumped into it, and I'm the owner of the stone, I'm chayev on his bottle of perfume that broke, because it's not bow with the special exemptions of bow. It's more chayev, like Shor, which is more mechuyev. Shmuel matatz l'taimei, all very nice. Shmuel also has his own explanation. He says like this: the Reisha, according to Shmuel, is beautiful. Why? Regular bow, I own it, I don't own it, my grandmother's neighbor owns it, I don't care. For Shmuel, bow is a bow. And you always potter on kalim. What about the Seifa? Now your question, the question you understood is much more urgent according to Shmuel. How could you ever have a case where I bump into anyone's bow or hefker or anything, any kind of stone, owned by him, put by him, the other person that's responsible will always be chayiv, would always be patu, because it's bow. So why is it chayiv if I broke my bottle of perfume when I bumped into it? Why? Don't worry, everything is good. Shmuel tatz l'taimi. Now that you said we now define stone to be like a bow. There is another opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, which we saw many moons ago in Daf, I think like Daled Amud Beis or Hey Amud Beis. Rabbi Yehuda de Mechayev al Nizke Kelim Bebo. Rabbi Yehuda is very much of a maverick. He has his own different opinion, and he says he learns the psukim differently, and he says that Nizke Kelim Bebo Yochayev. If somebody's kelim fell into my bow or bumped into my bow or whatever, or choked in my bow, whatever that is, I'm chayev. Therefore, very good. The Seifa follows Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. We follow Rabbi Yehuda and the Seifa, and that's all very nice. And that Shmuel now makes a lot of sense. Okay, very good. Let's summarize again. According to everybody agrees that, except for Rabbi Yehuda, the mainstream opinion says, "Show you would wake me up in the middle of the night." In Kita, I don't know, Vav Zayin, I'd be able to say to you. Yeah, that was like Shor v'lo adam chamo v'lo kelim. Shor, animals that fall in, rup, chayev. What about a person? Only if he's injured, you chayev, not if he's dead. What about kelim? Potul. The kelim broke, the kelim tore into a bowl, potul. Everyone agrees to that. Elamai. Rav says, I have my own definition of bow. I say bow is only bow if it's hefker. The guy dug a bow. The guy left his stone, left his knife, left his backpack, and he doesn't want it anymore. He's mafkir it, whatever, miyash, mafkir. Then what? Then it has the din of bow. You potter in the kelim. But if I still own it, says Rav, no. If you still own it, you're more chayev. You don't have the special exemption of bow. It's like a show. It's like your bull is causing problem in the street, so to speak. And therefore, you chayev also on kelim. Setu. That's really the crux of everything. That's the crux of the matter. I'd like to continue unless there are questions. So, if yes, quick. Amar Blozo. Now comes Blozo, and he's saying more details regarding the Machlokes of Rav Shmuel. He's continuing, and this is the second chapter. Amar Blozo. This is to do Jeff's question yesterday. Let's say the person, we're talking here about a person who walked down the street. He's, so happy this is his wife's birthday. He bought her some, bottle with something, liqueur, perfume, something, and boom, he bumped into the Evan, the stone. He's daydreaming. He bumps into the stone of someone else, owned, not owned, whatever. Yeah, he bumped, and he's chayev. Who's he? The stone owner is chayev because I bumped into your stone and shrach directly hit and broke my bottle because of your stone. Everyone agrees that In some cases, one case or another, you're chayav, you the stone owner. It's only true, he's qualifying it, and he says it's only true if you bumped into the stone, and nishof, it broke, it hit itself against the stone. It broke on the stone itself. Yeah, the stone was everything. I bumped into it, that caused the whole confusion, and the stone broke there. The bottle broke there. Let's say I bumped into stam, a piece of land. Let's say, like you're saying, the land has some kind of protrusion, then, I don't know, some kind of bump, a bump on the road, unexpected, something left by the area. Nitkal bekarka, and boom, I went flying forwards, venishov be'even, and then my bottle broke into your stone. Yeah, but the stone did not cause me to fall. I fell anyways, and I broke the bottle, which maybe I would have otherwise held better. I don't know what would have happened otherwise. That's a good question. But the Maisin ended up smashing against your stone. Then potu, then everyone would agree that the stone owner is potu. Says Rashi, simple logic, because he says the karka gomoloi. It's the land that caused you to fall, not my stone. Don't play would have, should have. Lamaisa, you bumped into the ground, not into my stone. My stone was the maki bepatish, but that's not what caused you to fall. You would have otherwise walked nicely and elegantly and walk all the way home. Maybe you wouldn't have hit my stone. Yeah. That makes sense. However, Keman, who does that opinion follow? That does not follow the opinion of Rav Nosson. We have met Rav Nosson before. Remember the case of the bull that pushed somebody into the pit, right? And who was chayv over there? So we say, Rav Nosson says that if you can't demand any payment from the shor that pushed, you do go to Barabo. In other words, when I don't have anybody else to blame, I would blame the one that ended up the nezek with. Since at the end of the day, my bottle broke, boom, into your bottle, smashed, hit your stone. My bottle and your stone were not a good shidduch, and therefore that broke my bottle. In that case, because I can't blame anybody else, in other words, it wasn't anybody else's fault that I fell except for the ownerless ground, and it did end up by you. You're not completely, you're like a quiet partner. You're like a dormant partner. If the bigger partner pays, yofi. But if the bigger partner is not there, by default, I'll go to you. And it ended up by you. And yet we don't say that. It looks like we're not following Rav Nosson, which is okay. We say no. We go by the beginning, not by the end. We see many, many times in different parts of Bava Kama, sometimes we go by the beginning, sometimes we go by the end. Each direction. Ikadamri, some say just the other way around. Amar Blozo says just the other way. Lo tema, don't tell me don't tell me it's only chayev if everything happened by the stone, the bumping in, the collision, and the break. Don't tell me that if he bumped on the ground, nothing to do with the Evan, and eventually hit the stone, then he's potu. No. This version says we do follow Rav Nosson, and as far as I can see here, that's halacha. If somebody bumped into something in the ground, some protrusion, some bumpy thing on the ground, and boom, hit, and it hit the Evan belongs to you, mister, or you left it there, or no less, because Lamais at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, excuse the pun, the bottom line, who really hits the bottle? Your stone, yeah? So even though you're not the only cause, it happened because of a different cause, but it ended up by you, and if not for your stone, maybe I would have held it better, I don't know what would have happened, I don't know. Lamais, it happened by you at the end of the day, and there's no other person to blame, and you are the Makeh Bepatish, you're the last chapter here, we are Mechayev you, Mr. Stone Owner. Rabbi Yehuda Omer b'miskaven chayev. 2 dots. Oh, now, Ellen, we're going to talk about Rabbi Yehuda. What did Rabbi Yehuda say in the Mishnah? Rabbi Yehuda says b'miskaven chayev and miskaven potu. Which means, generally speaking, let's just translate the Mishnah without even understanding so much. The Reisha, what did the Reisha say? We assume the Reisha is Rabbi Meir, by the way. Just an introduction. We have a rule, Stam Mishnah Rabbi Meir. A regular Mishnah, which is nameless, an anonymous Mishnah, is usually alleged to Rabbi Meir. And then Rabbi Yehuda comes and says, You're not always chayiv. Now Rabbi Meir is machmir. You're always chayiv on the bowl, on the puddle of water left behind, and the shrapnel. But what does Rabbi Yehuda say? Depends. Depends how bad, so to speak, how miskaven, what was in the mind, what was the background story of the person whose kad fell on the floor. Let's see. Says the Gemara, frag the Gemara, hey chidami miskaven, hey dalid. You have a few lines before the bottom, after the two dots. Hey chidami miskaven. What exactly is the story of miskaven? How do you define miskaven? Nobody here thinks, as far as I know, that the person actually is a rosho. I mean, that could also happen, but the Gemara assumes the person didn't actually take the jug and smash it on the floor, said, "Ha! Here's the candid camera, here's the hidden camera, let's see who's going to slip." That's not the assumption that that's what the person, you can ask why, I don't know, that's not the assumption. So what's miskaven? Omar Rabba, miskaven lo'orid l'mata miksefoi. That person whose jug broke is a person who took the jug, he lowered it from his ksefoi, from his shoulder. It hit a wall or something. He did some uncareful movement, and let me stress this: he should have been more careful. He should have been more careful, and he wasn't, and it broke. Then says Rabbi Yehuda chayev. But if it's an oines, if it just happened, I don't know, somebody came from behind, something unbelievable happened, he himself slipped, something completely he couldn't be aware of, then he's puddle. If it happened unexpectedly, completely, oines is puddle, says Rav Yehuda. You guys are asking the owner of the jug that is now it's falling off the ground, but it's really not his fault. Something happened, let's say the sun hit it. The sun hit it, and it was made out of very weak plastic, and it fell off his. I know it's like fantastic. The Gemara says, like namas, like all of a sudden he found the handle in his hand. He has no idea how it fell off his thing. It melted, something like that. Something happened. Then he's potter, says Rabbi Yehuda, or we indicate this. We learn it in Rabbi Yehuda. Frekt bohuch. It says odamod loylam. I'm putting words into your mouth. I'm a real North Korean. I brainwash you. Odamod lo'olam. There's no oines by people in Zikin. Says Tosfos in a few places, if there's an oines gamur, something way, way, way out of control, such as extremely strong wind, which should not be expected, ruchosh eliyahu, some kind of hurricane which nobody could expect and you cannot stand, or like the sun hit my kli and the kli melted without me noticing, something bordering on the almost impossible, then the person is potur. There is a limit. There's a gvul to odamod lo'olam. If the oines is like a super oines, extremely unexpected and unbelievable, incredible, then we say potur according to Rabbi Yehuda. Omer le'abaye, okay, Michlal, that is to say, the Mechayev Rabbi Meir afilu nifshara. So you want to tell me Rabbi Meir, even if nifshara, even if it melted off his shoulder and he found the ear in his hand, the handle, then Rabbi Meir, which did not differentiate, would be Mechayev? Omer le, yes sir, yes Mr. In Mechayev Rabbi Meir afilu ozna beyodoi. Even if it's ozna beyodoi, even if it's like the ear is in his hand, even if he has no idea how it happened whatsoever, how the jug fell all of a sudden, even then Rabbi Meir would be mechayev. What sense does that make? Once we establish the super duper oines you potter ben ezikin, oinosu the oines rachmana patre. Unless we talk about oines odamod lo'olam, the regular oines, the Torah rachmana. That's a very famous line. Kav ches amud beis, Bavakama, oines rachmana patre. The Torah exempts you in the case of oines. What's oines? Something out of her control completely. Oines also means rape. And that's where we're learning from. She's anusa. She's forced. It's not her fault. And that's the source. I think it's next week's parsha or so. Yeah. Somebody catches an eshes and rapes her. You don't do anything to her. Miskina. She tried, and there was no other choice for her. Yeah. So therefore, here too, if it's such a big oines, the potter ben ezikin, why is Rabbi Meir mechayev? The chitei mahani milinian ktolo. Maybe you're going to say no to kill a person like the girl who's really an eshes ish, but she is onus. You pater her because you don't kill her. Killing is killing. We tend to be very, very careful before we execute a person. Avalinin ezikin chayev. Maybe no. Maybe for Nizikin, I would say a person is chayav b'oinsin, even though it's a strong oinus. I would extend odem od lo'olam and say you're always chayav on anything that happens, any nezik that comes as a result from you. And therefore, I would say, according to Rabbi Meir, yes. The suggestion now is as follows. Rabbi Yehuda differentiated and says depends why it happened that the jug fell off his hands. So Rabbi Yehuda, what did they say? Rabbi Yehuda is more forgiving. If it's your fault, your fault. If it's complete honest, you're potter. It therefore sounds like Rabbi Meir, who didn't differentiate. It sounds like you always chayav, even if it's a complete honest. Maybe that's the case. Cliffhanger, jug hanger, yeah. We'll see tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem, what's Machlokes in Rav Yehuda, if you can sleep at night, yeah. Thank you very much. I'm sorry about all the interruptions of Zoom. Actually, I'm not sorry. I'm angry with Zoom. Everything is good. Thank you very much. Cheers.